Are we streaming already?
Yes, we are actually.
Are we
Yeah,
live?
we are
Oh,
live.
okay, cool. Just want to make sure I don't say anything too stupid. Okay. Yeah, so my background in chess is simple. Like, I did not play as a child. Okay.
Mhm.
I didn't play until probably, I want to say 2.5 years ago. I got heavily into Hearthstone,
Mhm.
and it became such an addiction that I was playing like 8 to 10 hours a day. So I stopped playing Hearthstone completely because I was
Oh,
like, I
wow.
can't. I was
Uh-huh.
like wasting 12 hours a day. And then, a couple of months go by, and I've always been a games player, and I love games, obviously, poker, whatever. And I started to just fiddle around with, I noticed like chess.com and stuff. And so I just started to try to, like, my goal was to get on daily games like a 1200 rating or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And so I just started playing pretty regularly, and I never got a lesson. I watched some videos. I actually watched the masterclass that Kasparov does on masterclass.com, which it helped me because it was like, as a beginner, like it explained stuff to me like a fork and, hidden attacks and all this kind of stuff. So I was like, okay, that's a good introductory thing. It doesn't break down all that much in-depth stuff, but it's a good primer for me. And then I watched some videos here and there because I got interested in a couple opens. So I watched a lot of like Danish Gambit because I love it. It's so fun. Because when you do it, especially at my level, people are like, what the hell? Can I curse on here or no?
Yeah, no, of course you can. Obviously,
Okay.
yeah.
So people go like, what the fuck is this? Because you can tell, right? Because usually early on in a game, people move very quickly. But then I move to like whatever it is, like E4, and then I go to D4, and then they're like, what the hell is this? Because they don't see this open very often. So
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
Mhm.
And it's a very aggressive style of playing white. So I just was fiddling around with that, and I don't know, I really enjoy it. I've gotten to the point now where I feel like it's difficult to get good on my own without any help. Like, I'm sort of at a plateau.
Right. Yeah, I kind of I agree with that. I think like when you start out, if you have sort of like a I think if you start out where you don't have a coach, but you can pick it up very quickly, it's very easy to get good. Some people, it's the other way where they actually need a coach from the very get-go. But there always comes a point where you plateau, you level out, or you stop improving in a sense. So yeah, it makes sense. All right, so you want to look at the Danish, right? You want to look at some openings, right?
Yeah, I like the Danish. It's fun.
Okay, so since you've watched some videos, you play the traditional run, right? With d4 takes and c3, you see the board, right?
Yep.
Okay, so you can also make moves on this as well. So I'm trying to think of poker references because I have played a little bit of poker as well. But I think like when you play openings like gambits, they're very good at the lower levels because you can't sort of follow the basic trajectory of what you want to do. So in the opening, the main things you want to do is you want to develop your pieces and get your king castle. That's the most obvious thing that all beginners are taught. Like if you're, say, let me just make some moves on the board, like just as an example, of course people don't do this, but like normally you're taught you want to do something like you move this pawn, move this knight, move this bishop, and castle the king.
Yeah.
So that's like the basics of what beginners are taught, and I think people very much, they focus on, I have to do this and then castle the king and then I'm fine. Whereas when gambits occur, it's of course a lot harder to play like that. So I do like the idea of playing gambits, whether it's the Danish, whether it's the King's Gambit as well. There are many gambits, but this is of course very aggressive. So all right, so in this position, where have you been having problems, or what are like the issues that you've been having since you're not completely new?
Well, this part is easy. Like, actually, so I've gotten really good at addressing people's mistakes. Like, so if I play, E4 to start, then they play.
You can make the moves, by the way. So.
Oh, I can make the moves. Oh, cool. So if I play this, they go like this, I go like this, and then sometimes they do this, right? So then I just go like this, they go like this, and now I eliminate their castle. So that feels like I get off to a good start doing that.
Right.
And the other one is when sometimes, how do I go back?
You just hit the back arrow on your keyboard.
Okay. And then the other mistake I think, I see people make a lot against me, which really hurts them, is they lose their what do you call it? No, I can't think of it. What the hell? The knight. Yeah.
Right.
So,
okay.
So they go like this, and then they do this, which is really dumb, because now like I go like this, and I actually, unless they go back, whatever, they typically go somewhere where they'll go like this, and then I'm like, all right, now what?
Exactly, and you win a knight, yeah, and you're just going to be ahead
like,
by 3 points, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good start. The part where I get struggle is when people play against correctly,
Mm-hmm.
And then so like it goes like, so I go to here, they go here, I go here, they go here, like this, and then I go up, they go here, I go here, and then let's say, for example, well, I don't know what they do. Sometimes they do, let's say, I don't know what they do. They do this, right? And then I'll come right over here.
Mm-hmm.
Right now I'm setting up that sweet diagonal over here.
Right.
And then they move their queen over here. And now I'm like, from here, I'm like, I feel like there's an exploit that I should be able to take because I think it's probably a mistake, but I don't know where to go from here.
There is one problem. At this point, it's already very bad for white. So like what you're actually supposed to do is not play queen to b3 here. I think the moves that you're supposed to play is knight f3, because after you move the queen, like if you think about the position before you move this queen out, you have these two bishops on really nice diagonals, right?
Yeah.
And so when you move the queen here, what happens is this queen, it stops black from developing, but there is one really critical point besides defending this pawn here, which is that black wants to put the knight to a5. So if you play like knight to f3 here, as an example, there's knight to a5.
Oh, that I'm dead.
Well, the reason that it's really bad is because what happens is that you're behind by 2 pawns here. It's like you've already gambited a lot of pawns for the quick development. You've given up like your b pawn, your c pawn, and your d pawn for the really quick development with the diagonals. So when your opponent plays like this, what you're actually supposed to play is to play knight to f3 here.
I see. So don't put the queen there.
Right, because again, so when you think about this position, and by the way, this idea with queen b3, it is a good idea, but in this specific opening, it's not really the best strategy. What you want to do here is develop your knight and castle your king, because even though it seems like you're giving your opponent time to develop their pieces, it's very hard to develop. Because let's say I move my knight here to f6,
right?
So what's the next logical move that you can play?
I mean, the next one I would do is that, typically.
Okay, so in this case, that's a good idea, but the order is slightly wrong. So if you push this pawn here, what black can do is I think black can throw in this check.
And then I do this.
Right, and then black can play pawn to d5 here.
Shit.
I mean, this is very complicated, to be clear. This is not easy, and a lot of people will not see this. But like what you can also do instead of playing e5 is you can also just castle here.
Right.
Like
wouldn't I just be giving up another pawn?
Okay, so let's work this out. So after knight takes pawn, let's try to figure this out. Why is this a really bad move for black?
Oh, because now I can now because he's what's it called, frozen because of the king behind. It's called what's the fork? No,
it's a pin.
A pin, right?
Yeah, so you can go rook to e1 here,
and then he would have to bring a pawn up.
Okay, so let's say I push the pawn to f5 here.
Yeah. Now I can. I mean, it feels like. I mean, maybe I'm crazy, but it feels like it's time to get aggressive and I don't know, move this queen up here. Is that nuts?
That's the best move. So okay, so your threat is checkmate, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna stop the checkmate. Now what's your next move?
My next move. That's a problem. My next move. I mean, I can take the pawn.
Uh-huh.
Let me see. So I can go like that.
Right. And I can't really protect this knight.
Yeah, because I have a double attack on this knight, and you yeah.
So if I move the knight, you like here, you just take the queen. It's a check.
Yeah. Yep.
And if I try to push the pawn to protect the knight,
I can just take the pawn.
Mm-hmm. Be careful. Be careful. There's a reason I asked. So yeah.
But did I make a mistake?
So just think for a second. Okay.
Okay. So there's a reason why I shouldn't be taking this pawn.
Okay, so let's see. So what if let's say you take this pawn.
Okay.
Does black maybe have a good move here?
Black has a good move. Oh, no. Why am I not seeing a good move from black? Let me see. Oh shit!
Yeah, your queen is hanging.
Oh my god, I gotta wake up. That's weak. So then I have to go this way.
Right, and it's the same thing. If I move my knight, then you take my queen.
Yeah.
And so I can't really guard the knight.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, like, when you go back to the start here, with castles, you actually basically you try to finish your development very quickly because it's hard for black to develop.
Yeah.
So now normal would be move the bishop out, I assume. And now what would be the next move that you'd play here?
I think well, one of two. I'm either I think moving the rook here.
Right, but remember, if you move the rook here, what happens is, I mean, okay, so I'm going to push this pawn instead of castling. And what was the reason that I pushed this pawn here?
Push this pawn to open up the bishop.
Right, so that's the obvious reason. There's another very important reason that I pushed the pawn.
I'm not really sure.
Okay, so one thing that's really important to remember, and this is why you can play these gambits, is that very oftentimes you want to push this pawn in the center of the board to e5 to attack this knight.
Oh, right. So he protects against me. Yeah. So basically, that's protecting his knight.
Right. It does develop the bishop, which is the overarching concept. But the most important thing is that it stops you from attacking. Because if you go back to this position without a pawn push, you can't really create threats towards where black's king is. You can maybe go knight to g5. Knight to g5, for example, like something like this, or you can maybe play, I don't know, like queen b3. But again, both of these ideas with like knight g5 and castles, or queen b3 and castles, the king is very safe.
Yeah.
So when you play these gambits, actually this is really important to remember, is that you almost always are going to be pushing this pawn to e5, because otherwise I can move the knight out, push the pawn, move the bishop and castle. I'm just going to go some combination of pawn to d6, some combination with knight f6, bishop e7 and castle, and then I'm just going to say I'm ahead by 2 pawns, because you've given up 2 pawns to develop these bishops very, very quickly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so yeah, so here you should castle, you should not push. But now let's say I push my pawn to d6, because I want to stop you from playing e5.
Right. What would I do here? I would develop my rook, I think.
Well, remember, if you develop your rook here, I will just move my bishop and castle my king again.
Okay, so then I guess what the hell then? Oh, do I move the knight to this place here and create a threat on this piece?
Right. So one thing that I think is really important to think about is when you play gambits, especially, you're trying to attack and create threats towards your opponent's king very, very quickly in the opening phase of the game. So you sort of want to think, how can your opponent react to your threats? Because your idea here with knight g5, how does black stop you from taking this pawn on f7? I mean, is there a good way or not?
Well, I think just moving his queen, but doesn't that put him in?
Okay, so but if I move the queen, you can, for example, which way would you take this pawn, by the way, with the knight or the bishop?
Good question. I typically would do it with the bishop, but I'm not sure if that's right.
But both are correct, but I think in general terms, you should take with the bishop.
Yeah.
And the reason is that now the king cannot castle anymore. It's had to move.
Yeah.
And now after I move the king back, I want to see if you can come up. Let's just say you play a move like, I'm just going to play a random move for white here. Is there a way that black can take advantage of where your bishop and your knight are here? Basically try to capture one of them or both of them?
Yeah, I think so, by moving... If he goes... Oh no, never mind. No, that's... I did it again. I put my queen right into the dead zone. Is there a way that you can capture these pieces?
So right now see...
If you go like this, right?
Yeah, and if I move the knight away...
Now I take the...
Exactly, and you're just way ahead. So in this position, you are trying to attack, but sometimes you also need to just play some quiet moves. So right now I'm threatening to play this and attack your knight and then win either the knight or capture your bishop if you move it away.
Yeah.
So is there a move that you can maybe play to avoid that happening? Like you can maybe move the knight or move the bishop or something along these lines?
Oh, from here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm thinking of like some sort of cool move that I don't see, but I mean, typically what I would do is just run away with the bishop.
Mm-hmm. That's very good. That's actually the best thing to do, and it's sometimes it's hard to see. That's why I was trying to see if you would notice it. Is you can move the bishop back.
Yeah.
And let's just say I play h6.
Now I would move my knight to f3.
You sure?
No. Oh, wait, no. Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I was sure, but now you when you said, "Are you sure?" I'm like, I don't know. I guess I'm not sure.
So there is a better square that you can go to here.
Oh, well, the only square would be. I mean, does it make? Can't just give away? Here. I mean, what is it like? H3?
Okay, so the move is actually knight to f7.
Oh shit! How do I not see this? I feel like my brain is not on yet because it's obvious. Duh.
Well, I would say that sometimes it's hard to spot the coordination of like a bishop and a knight or a bishop and a queen when like the bishop is really far away. So I mean, it's kind of obvious, but it's also not obvious at the same time. Because I think for people who are newer to the game, the hardest things to spot are like backwards diagonal moves with like a bishop, and to spot these ideas like using the bishop and like a knight from very far distance to make a fork.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's usually what I'm trying to do, but for some reason I blanked because I guess in my brain I was like, oh, the queen takes, but I can't both move the knight. Like, because when the king was on e8, then that play didn't work. But now that it's moved, because like from here I can't do that, but now I actually can because, yeah.
Right, exactly. Okay, good. That's very, very good. All right, so back to this basic position in the game. So when you castle, if I push this pawn here, you can immediately go for this attack towards f7. And if I try to move the bishop first to castle, what's the next move? What's the correct move here? To try to attack and prevent black from getting a standard setup with the king out of the center and these pieces developed?
So I want to be attacking. I mean, my first thought is, I'll just go with that, is like knight to, what is it, g5?
Right, now there's a difference. So the difference between this and the other position is that when you play knight g5, I can now castle.
Yeah, that's no good. That's not the one.
So the good thing is that in these situations, there are not many options because you played a gambit. So generally you have like 2 or 3 moves in any given position here that make a lot of sense. It's not sort of a situation where you're looking to like follow the basic concepts of developing pieces.
Yeah, well, okay, so if it's not that, then I would think either move my rook and finally put that in play on e1, or move the queen to d3, but that doesn't really do anything. That doesn't attack, right? And I'm trying to
so the move is e5.
Oh yeah. Okay, so wait, e5. Yeah, because that's the one. Duh.
So if we go back again, if I try to play this move to stop e5, then you can go knight here, and I can't defend this pawn.
Yeah.
And if I move the bishop, then you push it. So the basic idea is that you really want to push this pawn and remove this knight from the square in the center. Because, for example, let's say this happens. So I'm trying to keep the knight in the center.
What's that?
I'm trying to keep my black knight in the center here. Just keep it, because, for example, here, let's just say I go here, it's undeveloped again. And if I go here, it's sort of on the edge of the board. So if I go knight to e4,
then he's screwed because I go like this.
Exactly. And if I go here,
then I take this guy.
And when I take,
it's gonna be a problem for this guy.
That's checkmate. Exactly.
Ha! We did it.
So like this is the thing, is when you play this opening, you're trying to you're trying to prevent black from getting the basic setup where he moves the bishop, moves the knight, and castles the king.
So general thought is like, well, every move I make once I've developed, like in castle, is to just try to keep him from being able to castle.
Yeah, because basically when you give your opponent a material advantage, especially by playing gambits at the start, you're trying to develop your pieces very quickly, and you really need to win the game probably in the first like 15 moves or get a big advantage, because otherwise the more time they have to develop their pieces, eventually having more material, they'll be able to defend their position and you won't be able to attack, and you'll probably lose because you're way behind.
Yeah.
Which is why normally when you play this gambit, what happens is black very oftentimes will play something like this move. So this looks like a crazy move, probably.
I mean, doesn't look good.
Right, because I'm giving up a pawn. But which way would you capture this pawn?
I would take it with the bishop.
Very good. That's the correct move, actually. And the reason is because if you take with the pawn, I can develop my knight. And just to give you an example conceptually, if you get to this position, you see how this pawn is blockaded by this bishop. The bishop is in front of it, so it can't move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And also your bishop now, it doesn't, there's this diagonal is closed. The pawn is in the way. The bishop can't really attack on this diagonal either.
Yeah.
And then third, you can't stop black from just castling. So when both sides castle, you're just down by 1 pawn because you gave up 2 pawns at the start. So you have 5 pawns here, but your opponent has 6 pawns, and they're just going to develop their bishop and develop their knight, and you're behind. So it's going to be very hard to play.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's why in this position you want to take with the bishop, because you keep the diagonal open here with the bishop on d5.
Yeah.
And also, if you were to take with the queen, you don't want to do this because, again, it's the same thing. You're behind by 1 pawn.
Right.
Because you gambited 2 pawns at the start. So when you do play the Danish Gambit, you're really, you don't want to ever trade off queens if you can help it.
Right, because because basically when you're behind, you don't want to be trading, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's very true. So why do you think this is actually a very good move? Like a grandmaster player would in this position, or like a move or two later, would probably push this pawn. Why do you think I'm pushing this pawn?
Where are you pushing that pawn? Why would you be pushing that pawn? I don't know. I'm trying to make up an answer, but I don't have a good reason.
So it's sort of twofold. First of all, I can move my bishop out. I open up the diagonal in one go. So this is the main reason. But secondly, when you take, it also gives me time to play a move like knight f6 here and attack your bishop. So you're gonna have to waste time retreating with your bishop here.
Right. So basically, it slows the game down. No.
Yeah, and because I'm still ahead by 1 pawn, I'm very happy with this. So this is a very advanced kind of move. Most people will not play a move like d5 here. So let's go back to the other position. So let's keep going with this just to finish up this whole knight f3 position. So just to go through this once again, let's say I move the knight here. What's your next move?
Knight there. I'm going to castle, right?
Mm-hmm. And now just to think of the basic concept, what's your next move if it's your move here? What are the two ideas? What are the 2 ideas?
If I'm black or white?
If you're white, yeah.
So, well, you mean black hasn't moved yet?
Right, so let's just say I play a random move like this. What are the 2 moves that you want to look for?
I want to push the pawn.
Mm-hmm. And what's the other one?
Push the pawn. And I want to move the knight up to there.
Right. So in this setup, really the only 2 things you're looking at are either pushing the pawn or moving the knight. And I think the way to
the big mistake I've been making, like that screwed up the whole setup, was moving the queen instead of the knight early on. And then
right. I think there are a couple lines where you can do that, but almost always that's not going to be the idea. You want to move the knight or you want to push the pawn. These 2 ideas are almost always the critical lines. They feature this. Because like in this position, it's already very, very hard for black to play. Because again, if I stop this, then you go knight g5. If I don't stop and I move the bishop, you just remove the knight. And if I go back, what you can do here is actually now you can actually maybe play queen b3, but you can even just play your knight out to c3 here.
The mistake I was making before with that pawn was like I felt like it was unprotected, and he's just gonna, like, if I push it up, he's just gonna take with the knight, and I just wasn't thinking about the fact that like that sacrifices his knight. I didn't so I missed that move, which was really good for me.
Right. I mean, black can maybe sacrifice the knight, but again, it's
Never mind. I already moved the bishop. Not different. I was talking about a different spot.
Oh, which one? Which one? You meant here?
No. Yeah. Was it here?
It's okay. You can make the moves on the board too.
It's like I castled.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes. Oh, because he has to move.
Right.
Oh, yeah, this move. I was afraid of that.
Right. And do you remember? We actually looked at this. Do you remember why?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. I was just going back to like that's why I kept putting myself in a bad spot in this situation.
Right. Actually, because it's not intuitive if you don't realize why black can't just take this pawn in the center. It's like, well, it's just a third pawn. But again,
if you take my pawn and I move my rook, like, and then you block with this, right, and then how do I? Then I go here, I think it was. Yeah, and then I take the pawn I take both.
Basically I have to stop the checkmate, and the only way to stop this checkmate in one is to move my queen. If I move the queen here, you just take the queen.
Yeah.
All three of these squares are covered. The knight covers two of them, the bishop covers.
Then I take the pawn, and then I can take the knight.
Right, and you're way ahead. You have one extra knight here.
Because that comes up a lot, and I've been screwing that up, so that's going to help.
So that's why when you play this Danish Gambit, actually I think these days most players, what they'll play is they'll push this pawn instead of developing, because the thing is, like, since black is up 2 pawns, you don't mind giving 1 pawn back to try and slow it down, and then I can develop my pieces very quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas like once you reach this position, it's very hard for black to play, because if I try to develop the bishop first, then you just take the pawn.
Yeah.
And if you move the knight, you just castle, and again it's the same thing. You're looking for this idea and you're looking to push the pawn. Both of these ideas, I think the ordering, if you get to this position, is you should always be looking at this move first, knight to g5, to see if black can defend this pawn from your threat of capturing it. And if black can't defend, then you should probably play it. If it looks like there's a way to defend against this threat, then you should look at the pawn push next.
Yeah, chess is cool, man.
It's very different. It's like I feel like every situation there are multiple solutions or possibilities in a different way than in poker. I feel. I mean, you can obviously play poker many different ways, but I feel like there's generally an accepted percentage play, right?
Of course, yeah. It's really cool to see. Like I said, as an elementary chess player, like my first thought when I started playing was like, all right, don't lose pieces. Like, don't always protect your pieces. Like, I always wanted to be ahead of the trade, right? Which is why, like, when I started doing the Gambit, I'm like, that was probably a really good thing for my brain, because it taught me, like, no, just because you're behind in material doesn't mean you can't win the game. Because I used to feel like that. I'm like, oh, I'm down 1 pound, I can't win now.
It's funny you say that, because actually I know a lot of people in chess, they try to compare chess to poker, and they wonder why chess can't be big like on TV in the same way. And I think that's the exact reason why it can't, because there are a lot of situations where you can be behind materially, but you're actually winning the game. And so if someone doesn't really understand it, they'll see, well, one side has 2 extra pawns, they must be winning because it's +2, versus the other way, where like in poker, you know, if you're behind, and that's just how it is. But in chess, sometimes it's not the case.
Yeah, honestly, just doing this Gambit thing was like made me better, because it stopped me from this idea that like all that matters is like material advantage. And then I'm like, you see more dynamic, that's what I like. The Danish, like, there's a lot of dynamic lines and some cool stuff where I like the element of surprise where someone's like, oh shit, I just got mated super fast, I didn't see that. So
right. Yeah, I think it's very true. So let's say black, just to finish up this one little line with knight 6, let's say black makes a check here. I'm trying to finish my development and get the king out of the center of the board.
Yeah.
So here you kind of have to decide, because you can't just castle the king since you're in check.
Yeah. So I would just sacrifice the knight.
Right, and so now I'm going to move my knight here.
You're going to move the knight there. All right, so then I would, if you've done that, but I can't attack yet, right? Or can I?
Not really. So first of all, I put the knight on e7, not f6 here. Now in this case, I can move my knight here. But actually, let's say I castle, just to see. what is the best way to keep on putting pressure here towards where the black king is? Like right now you have 2 pieces that are attacking the pawn on f7.
Yeah, I think it's... Even the mistake I would make here, typically, is I would just try to get rid of this black bishop and sacrifice. But I think, what is the best way for me to...
So, again, once your opponent has developed their pieces, right? They've moved the bishop, moved the knight, and cast the king.
Yeah. So would I move? No. Oh, yeah, well, could I actually just go, like, super aggro? Does that do anything?
Well, okay, so... How does black stop the okay, let's just say I push a pawn to stop the threat on this f7 square. What's your next move?
Take with pawn.
Well, whoa. Okay, so you can actually make a checkmate here.
Checkmate. I can checkmate here. That's good. But let's figure out how, right? Can't move that knight, so that's cool. Oh wait, it's over. Duh.
Right, because your knight is protecting your queen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was trying to do, and then you move the pawn. And then I'm like, well, who cares if he moves the pawn? The game's over.
Right. This is when you play the Danish. By the way, you should be very aware of this idea of like these checkmate patterns, just with the knight and the queen, especially towards like these 2 squares, because like the only. Do you see a way that black can stop the checkmate here? Because right now you're just threatening to capture, right?
Yeah, so he would have to move this pawn here.
Right, and now since you're white, what's your next move?
I think I can go like this.
You can do that, but actually the better way to capture is with your knight.
Oh, because then I'm attacking his queen.
Right. And if black captures with the rook, you can just take with either the queen or with the bishop, and then your next move after I move the king is just to castle your king.
Yeah, now he's running. We got him running.
Right, and this is actually really good because on your next turn, let's say I push a pawn to finish my development, you can move your knight here.
Yes, I freed myself up because I castled.
Right, but do you see what the bigger threat is? Let's just say I just ignore this knight for a second. Do you see? You can obviously capture this knight. Do you see a better move?
So where does that mean for white?
For white, yeah. After I capture your knight here, so just ignore this knight because you can obviously recapture it. But is there something else you can do here?
So like if I'm white right
now. It's your move. Yeah, you're white. Yep. Right. So you can obviously take the knight, but look for something to try and maybe check the king or attack the king, something where you're threatening checkmates.
Oh, how about if I do... Is that crazy? Sacrifice?
It's working, but see if there's a better move. There's a better way. So you see how this bishop, it's on this diagonal.
Yeah. So maybe if I go... No, it doesn't work. So you're basically, you're talking about an aggressive move, not taking that knight, which is what I would normally do. Something cool here.
It's not easy, but there's a forced checkmate here.
There is a forced checkmate. All right, let's find it. Come on, Daniel, let's go. You got this. Don't be stupid. People are watching.
Don't worry, there are only like 20,000 people watching. It's all good.
Jeez, okay. It's okay. I've done dumber things on TV where I lost millions.
True.
I can handle it. Why am I not seeing? So there's a forced checkmate. You're saying. So you say. There's a. Oh, how about? Does this make sense?
That's actually a good move. Look for another queen move though. See if you can find another queen move. It's very.
Oh, duh. Here we go.
Wait, what's the move here? Right, and that's checkmate because the king can't go over.
See, that's the thing that's really hard about chess, or really like fun, is like, you see the obvious, like, why would I ever give up my queen? But then, you're forgetting because it's such a long diagonal that bishop's hiding over there. They're like, oh, he can't take it. That's like, especially when you play speed, faster games, it's like, oh, you miss all these little things where it's like, dude, it's game over.
Right, exactly. So like that's why like you really especially in the Danish, you want to be aware of these like open diagonals. Like here you see how it's a knight in front of the bishop, so you can just move the knight to open up the long diagonal for the bishop.
Yeah.
You want to be aware of that with both of these bishops on these two diagonals, because when you play the Danish, if you don't get like attacked on these diagonals, you're probably going to end up in a lot of trouble as the game goes further and further.
Dude, I'm so much better already. I'm going to crush. After this, I'm going on chess.com and I'm going to play all these knuckleheads in the 1100 ranking range and smoke them with my new gambits.